It was a couple of days ago that I got Shintaro Kago's super-dimensional love gun, which is sickening, offensive and horrific, which is exactly why I love it. Much like the work of Junji Ito, Shintaro uses his art to depict explicit and exact scenes. For example, look at its depictions of gore, especially in the latter half of the 7th story, Collecting Touch, but his art is complex and puzzling too. For this I would point out stories such as India Station, with its abundance of spirals and its general explosive, yet intellectual, psychedelic nature, and with the main character even at one point smoking weed, while the ending of Lamenting the Headless shows the heads as well as the organs of the men and women being piled on top of each other, and which resembles an overflowing trash can. A similar statement could be said for the ending of Refined's Hobby, potentially taking inspiration from Junji Ito some more with the art, how you are being stunned by the image being portrayed, and so you browse it intently no matter how truly disturbing the scene is. While the storytelling translates this well too, being South Park-esque in its absurdity and being inherently boundaryless. For example, the story Lament of the Headless, during which the protagonist, Arubikai, has her head and organs thrust out of her body whenever she climaxes doing sex, as a leading to her scaring away any potential partners. But after trial and error, she eventually says fuck it, and recruits other women in the same condition, hoping to find a male partner. However, all of them end up being women, potentially there are no men with this shocking trait, and so reasonably she becomes an on-the-road boss, using the women she has recruited as prostitutes and so making money off of them. Of course, this is the most logical end to the story. One thing that Shintaro also excels at is his dark sense of humour. No matter how the scenes are, he's able to project an uncanny sense of goofy comedy over it, and somehow desensitizing you to the often brutal displays depicted in the stories. Examples of this can be seen in the ending to Blessed Life, Collecting Touch, and Tono Station. Another of Shintaro's strong points is how he's able to seamlessly transition the stories into encapsulating different themes, from sometimes starting out tame, if you consider what its usual stories entail, but then thrusting it into the most gruesome yet logical conclusions within what the story has set up. Canophonistic can even be when you wish that it wouldn't follow this structure. These times often when it's executed most explicitly and considerably the best, such as the story Collecting Touch, which goes from the crazed female lead with an obsessive crush on a boy named Kitsuma, and to collecting whatever he touches, at first being reasonably tame, for example his pens and his umbrella handle, oftentimes cutting them off when attached to something, like for example a train handlebar, but jumping from this to cutting off parts of her skin on her arm, where he touches her to see where she got hurt by a cat, to then abducting other girls who she sees him around, being suspicious of their friendship being perhaps more than this, and so dissecting them when she sees him touching them. Again, the story starts up by setting off a path considered to be logical by the protagonist, the antagonist, and all the universe itself. But then after this, what it does is it takes the basis of this, the most tame version, or maybe something completely opposite to that, and then it will take 0 to 100 perhaps. For example, there's cases like the first story, The Town of the Japanese Beauties, and to an extent the story Chemical Mouth Disease. Even though the logic to us is the opposite of what we consider logical and or acceptable, the stories will oftentimes treat their subject matter as tame and mundane, strongly shown in The Town of Japanese Best Beauties. This logic is something which is presented as simple and will then taken to its most extreme conclusion, which is also brutally yet comedically shown in the story Local Tourist Information, and where the setup is that we're shown an island where everything is legal. The extent of the subject matter is instantly brought to its most extremes, showing war, rape, and anything else imaginable, being walked through this by the female local tourist guide, who is unnervingly cute and cheerful considering her situation, who Kago delivers his dark humour through. For example, in one scene where the tourist guide gets mad at a tourist for raping a woman, and but only because it's not the designated time to do so. She also at the end of the story picks up a gun and joins in on the ensuing chaos. Another thing Shintaro Kago does well is how he's able to seamlessly change the mood of the story, such as the rather comedic ending to Collecting Touch, showing some rather strange father and daughter bonding. Here Shintaro swiftly transitions the story from being grim, soulless and accompanied by sickening and shocking gore scenes into being a strangely wholesome endeavour, entirely flipping the story's themes and the narratives that it was setting up on its head. Another example of this can be seen in the story which the collection is named after, Super Dimensional Love Gun, where it ends by advertising the gun as a product, despite it being shown to cause deadly harm and is reckless to use and control, selling to the hilarity near the end. Boundaries of reality are never stagnant, and instead a pawn, or playground, and which Kago bends to his will as long as it furthers the story's narratives. Take the story Chemical Mouth Disease, which snaps into surrealism upon the narrative and logic of the world being set up by one of its characters. Another thing that Shintaro Kago does well is that it's able to juggle the books in many genres, and how it's able to excel at each, being unnervingly dark, sexual, sickening, and but all the while full of humour. In conclusion, Shintaro Kago is a manga artist who has gathered quite a reputation for himself, and rightfully so. The Super-Dimensional Love Gun collection shows all of his talents in unison throughout each story, and so I'll definitely consider this collection a good place to start if you want to get into his work. But apart from this, you have to keep in mind that you'll be diving face first into the deep side of the pool, but I wouldn't have it any other way.